Hi everybody, I'm Yanik. I'm from Puzzle ITC, a Swiss company. I work there as a platform engineer, and I'd like to show you our Dagger engine hosting journey today.
Before you get started, I do want to do just a quick shout out to the Puzzle ITC team, because not only are they're going to share kind of how they use Dagger today, but they've been an amazing partner for us, and so I wanted to shout all of you out because they're based in Switzerland, but they do consulting, and so it's what's been great about them is they've not only given us great feedback on Dagger because they use us, so they can give us that actual feedback, but also they've been really helpful on consulting users on if they need support on how do they integrate Dagger into their pipelines today. So if you're someone who's looking for that, I just want to make sure people know them as a resource, because the team is awesome. They're all super super nice, but then also really know what they're doing with Dagger. So just I want to give that shout out before you begin. So anyways, go for it, Yanik.
Thank you, Miranda. So, welcome everybody. Today I'd like to show you our uh, journey into the Dagger engine hosting space realm. And maybe first of all, to give you a bit of context, yeah, as Miranda told you, we use Dagger and we'd like to use Dagger even more. We also use Dagger since before the pre-Zenith era, so maybe some, I don't know if you know, but Dagger didn't have modules at the start. In the first iteration, it was Q, I think. Then there were the SDKs, which you had to use to start the Dagger engine via the code, and now you have the modules. So we use it since the SDKs, and this also showed up in our infrastructure that we have today. Maybe also for the context, I work as a platform engineering at Puzzle. I also work as a platform engineer in the CI/CD team. So I my day to day is making sure that our CI/CD infrastructure works, and with that also that the Dagger engine works. Here we at Puzzle, our developers like to use GitLab CI/CD. We use the GitLab CI/CD operator running on OpenShift. And with that, we also use the Kubernetes executor. This is all really specific for GitLab CI/CD. The Dagger engine itself also runs on OpenShift. We are using currently the official Helm chart. And everything that you see on this slide is tied together by ArgoCD, our GitOps setup hosted via ArgoCD. We really like to use the declarative approach to manage our infrastructure. And yeah, ArgoCD gives us that. So yeah, the Dagger engine on OpenShift. First of all, I have to say the official Helm chart of Dagger is really, really nice. So it's a good quality Helm chart, and we also used it a lot. But we have some problems when we want to run on OpenShift. Maybe you know OpenShift uses ASCII Linux under the hood. The nodes of the OpenShift cluster use ASCII Linux, and a big problem for us as the CI/CD team is that usually we don't or we aren't cluster admins. We don't have the cluster admin permissions for the OpenShift cluster. So we rely on the operations team that is responsible for our OpenShift clusters to run. And yeah, to run Dagger engine, you have to set up security context constraints. We also sometimes encountered some problems with garbage collection. So some of our builder nodes that are used for the Dagger engines ran full. And then we had to write a ticket or something or chat with the OpenShift team to help us because we don't have access to the nodes themselves. So they have to clean up for us, which makes the management a bit hard for us too. And overall, I would say privileged workload on an OpenShift cluster or on Kubernetes, plain Kubernetes even, makes sometimes managing deployments, especially the daemon set for Dagger engine, a bit hard. So what are the possible solutions, or what did we consider to maybe help us find a better way to host the Dagger engine? So first of all, we tried confidential containers. This is a container runtime which makes it possible that you can run pods. The smallest compute you have, the smallest type of compute you have on Kubernetes inside a virtual machine. The problem with confidential containers is that if you want to run privileged pods, you still have to use a SCC, a security context constraint, to run privileged workloads. So didn't really help us, sadly. We also thought about externalizing the Dagger engine to a virtual machine, which would give us much nicer control overall for the Dagger engine. We sometimes do this for build infrastructure because maybe the caching distribution is not quite right for us and makes the pipeline even worse. So we maybe centralize it to a special server which has really power to do the builds. Yeah, that's one strategy, but we had some thoughts about using virtual machines, and for us, we like to use OpenShift. We like to work on Kubernetes. So we would really, it felt for us like a step backwards. And also, we sometimes maybe want to use bare metal nodes. So we also maybe want to integrate some bare metal nodes in the future. For us, now the current solution is we use KubeVirt. So KubeVirt is a CNCF hosted project. It's part of CNCF since 2019. The current state is incubating, and it can be used to run or to manage, better said, to manage virtual machines via the Kubernetes API. So you can integrate virtual machines into your Kubernetes stack with it. And the virtual machines are running in pods, so to speak. Of course, under the hood, they use the KVM hypervisor, and the processes start a QEMU process to interact with the KVM hypervisor on the node, but it's really well integrated into the whole Kubernetes ecosystem. Here, a small example of how a virtual machine instance manifest looks like. I know YAML files are not that nice to look at, especially in presentations. But what's important here for us also was to use the container disks. When you use a container disk, this is a special type of disk you can mount to the virtual machine, which makes the virtual machine, if this contains, for example, Ubuntu, which makes the virtual machine an ephemeral virtual machine. That means if the virtual machine has to restart, it more or less behaves like a normal pod, and or in a deployment, when the pod will get recreated. So if the VM will restart, it will be recreated instead of rebooted. And yeah, you can also mount, for example, here empty disks, which work a lot like mtdir, or you can mount persistent volume claims, so you can pull in storage from the network, or you can pull in local storage. You are really free to use whatever you want and whatever you need. Also, the Cloud Init is supported too, so we can use Cloud Init to bootstrap our virtual machine. The second part, which would be integrated into the first YAML file, it's as the Cloud Init disk. Here is this Cloud Init file, which will install Docker as a container runtime, and then install or start Dagger. It will also mount a volume where Docker can store the containers and everything that Docker will pull, and the volumes Docker will create. You can also mount a second disk, for example, to externalize the varlib Dagger directories, the working directories for the Dagger engine, if you want to. Yeah. So our new setup looks a lot like the setup described in the official Dagger docs, but instead of using a daemon set, which is installed via the Helm chart, we use a virtual machine, which in turn creates a virtual machine instance. And we also make use of the multiple persistent volumes. The most important volume for us is the varlib Dagger, which is a bit bigger than the containers directory that I showed before, or should be a bit bigger than the containers directory. Here you can see the runner creating jobs, which are scheduled as pods on Kubernetes. This is special for the GitLab runner. And the jobs will connect to the Dagger engines we can run via a service, a Kubernetes service, and this is done via TCP at the moment. And the TCP, we don't use MTLS at the moment, but we have a network policy in place which makes it possible to only connect to the Dagger engines in the same namespace. So you don't have access from another namespace to the Dagger engine at the moment. And yeah, so we're really interested to see how fast TCP is or how slow TCP will be. Gerhard Lasu did a talk on the first Dagger meetup in Switzerland, which was really interesting when he compared the speeds of the transports which are supported. So yeah, we'll see. At the moment we will use TCP, but with this setup, it will be also possible to host a GitLab runner inside the virtual machine, which also hosts the Dagger engine. So we could possibly connect via socket to it if we to the Dagger engine if we want to. But yeah, we'll see how it scales for our needs. Another thing, the GitLab CI/CD integration. So on the left-hand side, you see our old setup, which had some reminiscence of the pre-Zenith ways. I'd say the pre-Zenith era of Dagger. Here is a Dagger Python image included, which also bundles the Python SDK, which was used before to connect to the Dagger engine or start up with the Dagger engine. And we also didn't really abstract away the Dagger host environment variable. But now with the new setup we have in place, our developers only need to use a Dagger tag and everything is set up for them. So they can just use Dagger call and call their modules. And yeah, the caching will take over from the Dagger engine, but also if they need some more integrations, they can still do everything that they want into GitLab. But yeah, most of our developers just like to call Dagger call and be done with it. So this is now a really small script instead of having to include. So even before you had to include a template, and now we just can choose the right tag. Yes. So now I'd like to show you a small demo. For that, I created here a small CI pipeline in GitLab CI where we just print out the Dagger version of the Dagger CLI. And yeah, of course, Gerhard is also the kubeproxy since, yeah, we will see. We are stress testing the setup currently, but I hope it will behave correctly and not be overwhelmed. But yeah, yeah, we print out the Dagger version, and then we have two jobs that will print out the OS release contents of first of Alpine and also of Ubuntu. And if this job or pipeline runs, so for example, this run is from one before the talk here. At the moment, it's in the version 13.7, Dagger engine 13.7. But when I go back, then here in the test Alpine, for example, it's just a sample output. So you get a feeling what it's outputting here too. We get the name Alpine Linux, yeah, all the OS informations. So as I said, we managed to set up via ArgoCD. Here you can see I hope it's big enough. Here you can see our resources that are relevant to you. We have a lot more, 19 additional resources, but these resources are, for example, secrets to connect to our registries we have set up there too. Not really interesting now for this talk. But here you can see the runner, you can see the service. We use a virtual machine pool, which is another type of manifest provided by KubeVirt, which ensures that we can scale up the number of virtual machines we want to have. Also, if we want to have multiple Dagger engines running in parallel, we can just, as you know from the deployments in Kubernetes, you can just set the replicas to a number 2, 3, whatever you want, and it will make sure that you have this number of virtual machines running inside the cluster. And yeah, the virtual machine spawns a virtual machine instance, and this instance has two persistent volume claims. One is for the container storage. So when Docker pulls the containers, it will save them inside this persistent volume claim. And the second one is the Dagger warlib Dagger directory, which is mounted to this PVC. And yeah, for us, before we had some problems upgrading because the privileged workload, and now yeah, I'd like to upgrade to the newest version of Dagger. So I will create, oh, maybe I have to say, here, this is the deployment repository. We bundled everything that you've seen in ArgoCD. We bundled everything inside a Helm chart and tried to create the Helm chart like the official Dagger Helm chart. So we only have to in the best case, we only have to update the app version here, and everything else will take place automatically. So I commit the changes, and I will force a refresh here, so we don't have to wait until ArgoCD will pick the changes up. And now you see the Dagger, the virtual machine will get into a succeeded exit, and now it's recreated. So we recreated the virtual machine instead of reboot. So what does mean? That does mean that the virtual machine instance will run through the cloud init again, but because everything that's state related is outside of the virtual machine and mounted into PVCs, it won't get touched. So it can just reboot and apply the new Dagger engine. We also have a health check here. So when this heart will be green, the Dagger engine running inside the machine is accepting TCP connections, and we could run again. We can run the jobs again. But
yes, the KubeVirt is really, really cool. I also especially like the cloud init part of it.
yes,
Maybe while it's running, what is the health check do, or like how does that determine the engine's ready?
it just listens to the port from outside. So we could actually just display, maybe you see or here, maybe we can see it here. So the health check is more or less just, so here is the readiness probe, for example, but the health check, the liveness probe is the same. We just try to connect to the TCP socket port 2375. And this is the one that the Dagger engine also binds to inside the virtual machine. And if it's up and running, yeah, it will answer to it.
Awesome. Yeah, that's really nice.
So at the moment, this virtual machine only has like 4 gigabytes of memory because we're just a bit trying out how much memory we'll give it. In the docs, yeah, it will probably in the production, it will be like 8 gigabytes of memory and 4 CPUs. But now we are just trying out some stuff with this setup. Yeah, we'll see where we land. And yeah, the boot takes more or less 1 or 2 minutes, but I can switch back for it to the presentation, to my last slide, without actually presenting it. Yeah, what's next for us? At the moment, we're using Ubuntu. We'd like to try out using a container Linux distribution like Flatcar, or maybe CoreOS or Fedora CoreOS, because we don't really need a whole Linux. We just need a specialized Linux to run containerized workloads. No overhead, or not that much overhead. Also, shared cache is a subject of the next steps, for the next steps. We dabble with the idea to create an operator to abstract away even more of the operations part. And yeah, we'd like also to extend the official Dagger documentation with our cloud init scripts, maybe, so other people of this community can host their Dagger engines onto hyperscalers or wherever they want to inside virtual machines. Thank you, Andreas. Any plans on centralizing caching? Yeah, that's one thing. We would like to centralize caching, maybe using the official Dagger cache, but maybe also some cache inside the cluster. But we're not sure at the moment how we go about it. We will see. Yeah. So yeah, stay tuned. We would like to create a blog entry in our official blog, maybe in February 2025, maybe a status update, how this setup really works. Is it good, or did we just change again to the Helm chart? Maybe, I don't know. We'll see. And yeah, also another reminder, if you are in Switzerland, please visit us at the next official Dagger meetup, which will be March 5th, 2025. Yeah, let's see if the engine restarted. Yes, it did. It has a green heart, so the readiness probe is working. Maybe I have also to cheat a bit, because the GitLab runner doesn't really restart automatically, so it will have the old CLI installed there. So I will delete this deployment of the GitLab runner. So we have the newest configuration mounted there too. Just waiting a bit so it becomes ready, and then we'll push out the pipeline again and see if the update has worked. Nice.
That's great, Yanik. And I think I have I might start a new thing for community calls of where I do a tally of how many tools we can use with Dagger.
Yes.
All has the most tools, because seeing kind of how this all integrates, and and it's a great reminder too of just like you don't have to rip and replace with Dagger. You all had a setup, and you didn't have to have a whole conversation of like, now we have to use just Dagger. We can actually integrate it into your current setup and improve things overall versus just rip and replace. So this is very cool to see, and like Gerhard said, very excited to keep improving this with all of you too.
Yeah, I'm really happy too with the setup. As you can see, it's now upgraded. So for us, the maintenance will hopefully be a bit easier in the future with this setup. But yeah, I hope you have seen some cool stuff. Yeah, you can reach us in the Discord too, I think. And yeah, if there are many more questions.